Yo, so with Wano ending in the anime, I feel compelled to talk about one of the core parts of Kaido's character that interested me so much. And it was this idea that he wanted to be Joy Boy. And after my recent video about Big Mom, go check that out if you haven't already, I realized that there are a lot of characters that fit this, not as directly as Kaido, but in a very similar fashion. And I've started to call them failed Joy Boys. And it's like these characters that almost have the same dream as Luffy and the same type of drive and ambition as Luffy and want to achieve that Joy Boy-like status, but kind of a perverted version of it, or they just went about it the wrong way. And it's all these characters in the story that I think if they could have had some different guidance or someone to show them a different path, they could have ended up in Luffy's spot right now.
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
Put simply, they could have been Joy Boy. Now, the most obvious example of this is Kaido. I mean, he directly said he was Joy Boy.
Stop the cap.
He was lying his ass off, but he believed it. And he wanted freedom just like Luffy. But the difference between him and Luffy really comes from where they were raised. In Luffy's case, he grew up in a village surrounded by people that loved him and cared about him. I mean, there was some fucked up shit going on, but people cared about him. Kaido was raised in a war-torn country that literally had to get into wars and steal from people just to survive. So of course, his idea of freedom would be that it can only come through strength, fighting your way through shit, beating other nations, beating other people, and gaining your freedom through dominating them. And I feel like at such a young age, Kaido gained a resentment for nobles, which is kind of okay in the One Piece world. A lot of people don't like the nobles for good reasons, but in Kaido's case, that combined with his violent tendencies, combined with how much he sought for freedom, made him hate the nobles and hate the order that they represented. And somewhere along the way, I think Kaido started to believe that order itself was anti-freedom. So the only way to be free is to start some chaos. But somewhere along the way, Kaido just gave up, or he failed to reach what he thought he could reach in some way. I can't help but think it has something to do with Rocks and his influence on him, or whatever happened at God Valley, God knows what. But whatever it was, obviously made Kaido give up on his initial ambitions, and at some point decide that Joy Boy was going to be the one that defeated him instead of him being Joy Boy himself. And I think it's around that same time that Kaido started to believe that his only freedom would come from death. And it makes perfect sense considering that he already came to terms with the fact that it would be Joy Boy that led him to that death, aka Joy Boy leading him to freedom. If we're going with the belief that Luffy actually killed Kaido, it would mean that Luffy liberated another person.
Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was, a god.
And then we have Roger. Now, Roger's interesting. When I was first making this video, I was thinking about doing like a 7 deadly sins thing with it. You know, Big Mom being gluttony, like that. But I stopped because I couldn't decide who I wanted to be Wrath, Kaido or Roger.
What?
And it's interesting because Roger is the closest thing that we've had to Luffy. And obviously he was there wrong time. But besides that, I wanted to see what thematically prevented Roger from being that one. And to me, it became obvious when I heard Shanks and Buggy talking about their experiences being on Roger's ship. And the one thing that they hated the most about Roger. And it was how he was brash and ruthless, and he would lash out at even the smallest transgressions against his friends. And I think this exact thing is what prevented Roger from being that Joy Boy figure. It was said by multiple people in the story that Roger was brutal, and he was not nearly as merciful as Luffy is. Like, Luffy gonna beat your ass and then he gonna let you have it, he gonna let you go live your life. Roger was killing whole pirate crews, and a lot of people hated Roger. We see it from Ace's childhood. A lot of people really hated Gol D Roger, and a lot of people had a pretty good reason to hate Gol D Roger. Like Squad, that the whole squad. But that exact nature is antithetical to what Joy Boy represents. Joy Boy is a liberator, so it can't be someone cruel or oppressive. They cannot take that mantle. And I don't even think that Roger's purposely being oppressive to people. I don't think that was in his character. But I just think emotionally, the was kind of unstable, and he ended up striking fear into people, probably not on purpose, but just by virtue of his anger problems. And I think Roger's issues caused the exact reason why Shanks couldn't be that figure either, because exactly what I said, Shanks hated that side of Roger. He hated seeing that. So when he became his own captain, he kind of overcorrected in the other direction and became too passive. And this also could be a possible effect of what Roger's last words to him were, but we don't know what those were. And I think think because of what he saw on Roger's ship, Shanks became a very protective person. We see this all the time with his fleet, with his crew, with Luffy. Shanks is a protector. He always wants to protect the people he cares about. But I also think that causes overcautiousness, because before Shanks makes any decision, he's always thinking, is this gonna put my crew in danger? Is this gonna put my fleet in danger? Is this gonna put the world in danger? Which is a good thing to worry about, but that's what separates Shanks from people like Luffy and people like Roger, is if Luffy wants to do something, he's gonna find a way to do it. It doesn't matter. And he gonna find a way to do it and make sure his whole crew get out safe. But I think Shanks doesn't even see that as a possibility. But it's also possible that when Shanks found out about his Celestial Dragon connections, that's when he kind of gave it up, because he felt like it was wrong for him to take that spot knowing what his lineage was. And Shanks is just kind of a selfless person in general, and just seems like the kind of person that's content taking that back seat. And someone who is absolutely not content taking the back seat is Rocks. If we were doing the whole 7 Deadly Sins thing, Rocks would definitely be greed, because I have a feeling, this is all speculation by the way, I have a feeling that his greatest issue was overindulgence. Just looking at the way that he stacked his crew with only the top tier strongest people, like he was just going around collecting them like Pokemon cards, as opposed to every other captain we've seen in the story. They go around picking up people because they like them, or they have similar ideals, or they want to go down a similar path. Rock seems like he sought out people simply for strength, and it's that kind of greedy mindset that I think led to his downfall. I mean, look at what his goal was, as opposed to Luffy just wanting to be king of the pirates, Roger just wanting to be the best pirate crew. This nigga's goal was to be king of the world.
What the f does that mean?
If that's not greedy, like, come on, bro. But I think it was exactly this greed that made him overstep. Yes, he got more things, he just got more and more greedy, up until the point where the world government had to step in, like,
See? Now you stepping out of your lane once again, so I might have to smack that ass.
there's only one king of the world, nigga. And from Kaido's ideology, we can probably guess that Rocks wasn't the most trustful person. He probably didn't view anyone as actual friends, just allies, which is also completely antithetical to everything Joy Boy represents. Joy Boy's supposed to care deeply for other people and heavily rely on other people and be loyal to the core, which I don't think Rocks was. Actually, I think at God Valley, Rocks probably tried to betray or sacrifice the crew, and that's probably what led Kaido to think about pirates the way he does, because probably the one pirate he admired betrayed all of them. And these selfish goals and behaviors, he just couldn't be that, bro. He's just not him. Speaking of not him, Ace. I think Ace is probably the most tragic character in One Piece. He is like the greatest example of everything that could possibly go wrong in someone's life in One Piece, because he had everything. He had all the potential in the world. For all intents and purposes, Ace should be Joy Boy. He had the goals, the ambitions, he was fiercely loyal, he was the son of the Pirate King, he was strong as hell, he had Conqueror's Haki.
Come on now, dawg.
But Ace's biggest issue was pride. Ace was prideful as fuck, so he would never go back on anything, which wouldn't be an issue normally until that resentment for his father built in. As he heard from more and more people how merciless and hated Roger was, he grew to hate him. And I can't help but think that that kind of shifted the entire trajectory of Ace's life. Because of that hate, it made him want to avoid his father's legacy so badly that he wouldn't even tell anyone that that was his dad. And it made his journey more difficult than it needed to be. Like, imagine if Ace had all the connections that he could have had if a few people just knew who his dad was. Like, imagine the connection he would have had with Shanks, with Rayleigh, with all of the vast number of people that even we've made connections with just because Luffy reminds them of Gold Roger. Imagine if his son walked up, and because of this prideful nature, Ace just avoided getting help from anyone. I mean, even Luffy talks about it. Ace gets mad when other people try to help him. That's why Luffy didn't go to get Ace right away, because he knew, nah, Ace would be mad as fuck if I showed up and saved him right now. But Joy Boy needs to rely on others. That's part of the whole thing. It's never-ending trust in your friends. But because of that pride and that need to upstage his father, Ace was never up to accept that level of help. And the nail in the coffin is when he met Whitebeard. Because of Roger and Whitebeard's rivalry, I think somewhere inside Ace, he felt more inclined to help Whitebeard become king of the pirates, because it would be that much more of a sting to his dad. Like, you not that special. Whitebeard did that shit too. Even if that wasn't his primary reason, like obviously he loved Whitebeard and cared about him. But it's not like Whitebeard ever told Ace he wanted to be king of the pirates. That's just something Ace wanted to do for him. And Ace kind of gave up his ambition and gave it to Whitebeard. Everything about Ace just makes me sad. Especially that scene with Yamato in 1015 when Yamato is talking about Roger, but Ace doesn't know that Yamato is talking about Roger. That scene makes me so sad because it's just proof that in a different life, in a world where Ace actually got to meet Roger, they would have been cool. He would have liked his dad, but because of what he heard from other people, it completely changed his life and his view on his own father. Ace is just so sad to me because his pride itself eventually cut his ambition short. But on that note, that's all I got for y'all today. If you liked the video, go ahead and like the video. Go ahead and subscribe to the motherfucking channel. And yeah, man, I'm gone.
Damn.